She thought she was flying to Italy to help plan her mother's birthday. Instead, Diana arrived in Florence to find herself erased, seat by seat, line by line, smile by forced smile. Her name was gone from the guest list, her role replaced, her legacy quietly reassigned. But this wasn't just a mistake. It was a story years in the making. What happens when the woman who built everything is written out of her own narrative? Diana was about to answer that loudly. This isn't just a story, it's a reminder that karma never misses. Curious how it played out? Type 1 and I'll share the next part. Wherever you are right now, I hope you're okay. Fix yourself a warm drink and hit 1 if you're ready for the rest of this story. The first sign was subtle but unmistakable. She stood just outside the rooftop restaurant in Florence, the warm Tuscan air clinging to her skin like silk and tension. Inside, the table she had designed, hand-picked florals, soft lighting, gold-trimmed menus, stretched beneath twinkling lights and manicured olive trees. Every detail had her touch. Every detail except one. Her name was missing. She scanned the place cards, each scripted in elegant gold calligraphy. Her stomach didn't drop. Her hands didn't shake. That would have implied surprise. Instead, there was only the hollow recognition of a truth she already knew. She wasn't meant to have a seat. "Sweetheart," Odessa said with a syrupy voice that always masked something sharper beneath. "Maybe you're tired. You don't have to stay for the whole dinner." That single sentence, wrapped in maternal concern, laced with condescension, felt like a quiet dismissal. Callum, Diana's brother and once her closest ally, cleared his throat. "Maybe someone just miscounted," he muttered, barely meeting her eyes. His arm brushed against Vivian's, the new woman constantly at his side and, apparently now at the center of everything. Her glance was brief, unreadable. You don't miscount your own daughter at a table of 13. Even Marco, the head server, noticed. He pulled her aside quietly, apologetic but careful. "Your name was on the chart this morning, Signora Halden. I saw it myself. But this afternoon, a new version came through. You were removed." His words were soft, but they landed like thunder. Diana didn't break. She nodded, thanked him, and turned toward the hallway. Her reflection in a nearby mirror was flawless. Sleek hair, tailored dress, confidence designed to look unshakable. But behind her, calm was a storm-gathering force. This wasn't a moment, it was a pattern. She'd been here before, invisible in family photos, sidelined in milestone events, always slightly out of frame. But this was the most deliberate act yet. No seat, no name, not even a placeholder. Later, as Odessa stood mid-toast, radiant in her emerald gown and glowing under the spotlight Diana had arranged, Diana stepped forward, not loud, not soft, just clear. "Seems I'm not family." 12 heads turned, no one stood, no one spoke. And just like that, she turned and walked away. They had tried to write her out, but Diana Halden wasn't done speaking. As she stepped into the quiet corridor beyond the rooftop restaurant, memories she had buried for years came rushing back. Not in flashes, but in quiet, calculated echoes. This wasn't the first time she had been left out. It wasn't even the worst. It was just the latest chapter in a book her mother had been writing for decades, one where Diana was always just off stage, just out of frame, just enough to forget. She remembered the Nutcracker. She had been 11, eager and dressed in her favorite green velvet dress when Odessa gathered the cousins for a Christmas trip to New York. Diana stayed behind, told she had the flu. Only later did she learn there was no flu, just a spelling bee she had been excited about. Her mother's excuse? "You wouldn't have enjoyed the ballet anyway, darling." At 17, it was Callum again. Diana brought him home during winter break, glowing with first love energy. Odessa took one look and whispered, "Not a long-term man." At the time, Diana laughed it off, but Odessa made sure the message stuck. By 29, Diana stood at her own wedding reception, smiling for a camera she would never see the photos from, because most of them, she later realized, were of her mother. Odessa laughing, Odessa posing, Odessa in the center, always. Diana was just slightly to the side, blurred by design, and now at 38 in Florence it had happened again. This wasn't clumsiness, it wasn't forgetfulness, it was orchestration. For years, Diana had told herself it was just circumstance, that maybe she had misunderstood, misremembered, overreacted, that if she just worked harder, smiled more, gave more, stayed quiet longer, she'd finally earn the place she thought was hers. But the rooftop dinner had clarified something. There was never going to be a place given to her. Because erasing her was never accidental. It was inherited behavior passed off as tradition. Odessa didn't just edit her out of birthday parties. She edited her out of her own legacy. Later that night, Diana sat in the dark suite she had reserved and designed down to the thread count. She stared out at the moonlit Arno, not seeing beauty but betrayal. She opened her journal, untouched for months, and wrote 7 words. They don't just want me gone, they want me forgotten. She underlined the sentence twice. For years, Diana had believed she was walking toward her mother's approval. That every perfectly executed event, every press-worthy gala, every vendor relationship she had fostered with care and skill would eventually prove her worth. But she saw it now. She had never been climbing a ladder. She had been running on a treadmill, and Odessa controlled the speed. She wasn't just being excluded, she was being erased. And if they wanted to erase her, they should have made sure she hadn't kept the receipts. Diana didn't scream. She didn't demand a seat. She didn't even confront them. Not yet. Instead, she did what she had always done best. She observed, she documented, and she planned. The next morning, a cream-colored envelope was slipped under her door. Inside was the press itinerary, an elegant agenda outlining every media-facing moment of Odessa's legacy tour. Diana's name was nowhere, not as producer, not even in acknowledgments. But there was Vivian's name twice, once as Odessa's legacy partner and again as brand liaison. It was a surgical strike. When she called Marco, her publicist, his voice wavered with guilt. "Odessa said you weren't interested in the press portion," he mumbled. "That you preferred staying behind the scenes. You assumed wrong," she said calmly, then hung up. That afternoon, she entered the ballroom early. Technicians were setting lights, the AV crew huddled around their monitors. Marco, the maitre d', greeted her with a quiet nod. "We're previewing the tribute video, Ms. Halden. Would you like to see it?" She said yes, arms folded, posture steady. The screen flickered to life. At first, it was familiar. Super 8 footage of Odessa in her early days. Then came family moments, birthdays, galas, museum openings. Diana, age 6, clinging to her mother's skirt. Diana, age 10, on a pony. Diana at 12, grinning with braces and 2 big glasses. And then, midway through the montage, she disappeared. From that moment on, the screen was filled with Vivian, laughing with Odessa backstage, walking red carpets, accepting flowers. A curated story of succession, carefully edited. Diana's heart didn't race. Her hands didn't shake. She simply turned to the AV tech. "Can I see the cue sheet?" He handed it over. She scanned the laminated rundown. Segment 1, Odessa's early vision. Segment 2, Odessa plus protege. Segment 3, Odessa's legacy. Live speech by Vivian. No. Segment 4, no Diana. She took 2 photos of the cue sheet. No flash, no fuss. That evening, back in her suite, Diana pulled out her tablet and opened a secure archive folder. In it were contracts, emails, vendor agreements, every last detail of the event logistics. Every payment carried the name Halden Events. Every reservation had her initials. Every floral order, every lighting diagram, every schedule had passed through her hands. So they wanted to cut her from the spotlight? She'd cut the power. One by one, she began. First, the vineyard in Tuscany. She called the general manager directly and canceled the space. Deposit refunded. Second, the yacht in Capri. Canceled. Third, the villa. Gone. Fourth, the Vatican's private art tour. Politely withdrawn. Each email was professional. Each call, graceful. But the message was clear. If they wanted to remove her from the credits, they'd also lose the event. By nightfall, the dominoes had started to fall. It wouldn't be loud. Not yet. But it would be felt. Because Diana Halden had never needed the spotlight. She had always been the one controlling the switch. And now, she was ready to flip it. The morning after the first wave of cancellations, Diana received a voicemail from Odessa. There was no apology, just a thin veil of concern. "This is embarrassing, Diana. Please stop." Classic Odessa, still trying to frame control as care. Diana didn't reply. Instead, she slipped into the hotel's business center and printed every piece of documentation she'd gathered. Emails, contracts, confirmations, cancellation receipts. She tucked the files into a leather folder and labeled it the way her mind had already done, evidence of erasure. That afternoon, Odessa announced a reconciliation brunch, a curated gathering of close family and press allies, a glossy performance of grace and damage control. Diana wasn't invited. She showed up anyway. The room fell quiet the second she stepped in. Forks paused midair. Conversations dropped. Odessa looked up from her seat, lips tight in an imitation of calm. Vivin blinked. Callum stared at his plate. Diana didn't rush. She crossed the room with unhurried poise, heels clicking like punctuation. She stopped beside Odessa's table and gently placed the folder down. "You all deserve to know what really happened," she said, voice steady. Odessa stood, panic stitched into her smile. "Diana, this isn't the time." "It never is," Diana replied, "but I'm done waiting for permission." She opened the folder and began. Page by page she read aloud, the press visuals she was cut from, the contracts with her name on every line, the email where Odessa instructed staff to remove her for brand hierarchy. Her voice didn't waver. She didn't shout. She didn't need to. "This," she said, lifting one cancellation receipt, "is what happens when someone you try to erase remembers exactly where you signed her name." Odessa's composure cracked, not rage, not remorse, just something hollow giving way beneath pressure. "We're family, Diana," she said weakly. "You're blowing this out of proportion." Diana tilted her head. "Are we? Because I don't remember family erasing your name from every line of a legacy you helped build." A few guests shifted in their seats. One journalist quietly pressed record. Callum stood and left the room. Vivin paled but didn't speak. "I don't need a seat anymore," Diana said as she closed the folder. "I brought my own table." Then she paused. "And I don't need an apology. Just distance." She turned, heels echoing on polished floors. At the door, she looked back once. "You can keep the spotlight," she said. "I'll keep my name." And with that, she walked out. Not as the forgotten daughter, but as the woman who reclaimed herself. No applause, no dramatic music, just the soft certainty of someone who had stopped asking to be seen, because she had already chosen to see herself. Florence faded behind her without fanfare. No teary glances at the hotel, no dramatic exit through the lobby. Just a quiet one-way ride to the airport, her luggage packed not with souvenirs, but with clarity. At the check-in counter, she upgraded to first class, using points her company had earned through a decade of work that no one in that ballroom had ever acknowledged. From the airplane window, the city unfolded beneath her, rooftops and rivers, history baked into every stone, but she felt no longing, just freedom. Back in Chicago, the difference wasn't in the furniture or the air, it was in her. The old Diana would have unpacked immediately, organized every item back into place, cleaned up the chaos of other people's choices. But this time she let the suitcase sit. She made tea, turned on Miles Davis, and watched the rain slide down the windows. Peace, she realized, doesn't always arrive with celebration. Sometimes it shows up quietly, when you stop asking for permission to feel it. In the days that followed, emails began to trickle in from European vendors. Odessa's team hasn't responded to balance requests. "We were told you weren't involved, but that seems incorrect. No one wants to guarantee her events now. Too much drama, too little honor." Diana didn't reply. She archived the messages like she was closing chapters. And then came the envelope. No return address, just a single sheet of paper inside. "I regret how this was handled. You are stronger than I gave you credit for." No signature, no love, Mom, just Odessa. It wasn't an apology, it was a final admission. She didn't frame it, she didn't burn it. She tucked it into the back of her journal, where unfinished things belong. Weeks passed. Gossip blogs lit up with whispers. Someone close to the family had anonymously posted, "They used me, told me to smile, wear her colors, say her lines. I wasn't her daughter, I was just convenient." Everyone assumed it was Vivin. She denied it, but soon after, she vanished from Odessa's events. Quietly, completely. No scandal, just absence. 6 months later, Diana stood on a terrace in Positano, clipboard in hand, finalizing floral details for a celebrity wedding. The scent of lemon trees mixed with sea air. Laughter floated from the courtyard, real, not rehearsed. A junior planner leaned in and whispered, "You're the woman who walked away from that family in Florence, right?" Diana didn't answer. She just smiled. "Some names you earn, some names you reclaim." That night, she opened her journal and added a final line beneath the first page. "They tried to unname me. I renamed myself." Healing, she now understood, wasn't about forcing forgiveness. It was about no longer waiting for it. It was about choosing peace without applause, rewriting the ending without permission, and building a legacy that no one could erase, because it was signed finally in her own name.